I'm just going to do a real short tutorial on a 2011 Ford Taurus SEL power steering pressure hose. It's the hose that runs from the pump to the power rack. This is what it looks like when it's out. This is the first one I've ran across. First thing, you get it up in the air and stabilized good. I jacked it up. There's some places up front to get it pretty good and sturdy. Pull the tires. And then you have to go underneath this son of a bitch. And there's one bracket up on top right there. That's an 8mm bolt. There's one off the hose right there. That is a 10mm bolt. There's a 10mm bolt holding the hose into the power rack. Then you have to pull off the power steering belt. It's one of them tension belts. There's no adjustment to it. It's stretched to fit. There's a bracket just above the pump. That's a 8mm bolt. There are two 10mm bolts, one on bottom, one on top, just behind the fill hose, and one 13mm bolt that hold the pump on. You got to take off all the brackets and then pull the pump down in order to break that nut free on the power steering hose right up there, because it is a tight son of a bitch that's on there. They cranked it on with everything they had. And then there is another bracket that holds the power steering line on right back here. That's hooked up to the valve cover. Comes from the hose down to a valve cover stud. And that is an 8mm nut. And then you get everything taken off, dropped off, loosened up. And you got to pull the hose out by putting the end from the pump up through and down into where the power rack is and pull it through that way. And then when you put it back in, you just reverse. You come in from where the power rack side is and fish it through. It's kind of a bitch. You might have to turn the brackets to make it wiggle down in there. Then you start it in the pump. When you put the new hose in, you start it in the pump, 5-6 turns so it doesn't cross thread. Then put the pump up into place, push the line up. Then what I had to do is I had to take a 18mm wrench and cut it off short, because there's a stubby right next to it, and the stubby is too long to get in there. And it's 1/8 of an inch of a turn at a time to get that flange nut back down in there to tighten up. Make sure, when you put the hose through, I took tape and put it around, because there is an O-ring and there's a Teflon seal that you don't want to bump and mark up when you're fishing it through. So I taped them up so they didn't hit anything. And it's just, just reverse process. You tighten everything up, then you bleed the system out by filling it up, turning it all the way to the left, all the way to the right, back and forth to burp the air out. And then make sure your reservoir is full with power steering fluid, and you should be good to go. Be prepared. It's going to take a while. I mean, some guys on the internet said it's a 2-man job, and that's just fishing that frickin' hose through there. But one guy can do it, but it takes you a while. Have fun.